What would you do if the person you loved with all your heart suddenly threw you out in the middle of a cold, rainy night, just because someone richer came into their life? Welcome to African Heartfelt Stories. If you love emotional and touching stories, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. Thank you for your support. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Damian Brooks and Clara Brooks had been married for only 2 years, but anyone who saw them together could easily tell they were deeply in love. They were not rich, not even close. They lived in a small rented apartment in a quiet area of Chicago. The apartment was old, the kitchen was tiny, and the sitting room could barely contain their small sofa and television. During summer, the old standing fan made loud noises while turning from side to side. But to Clara, none of that mattered. She believed peace and love were more important than money. Every morning, Clara woke up before Damian. She prepared breakfast while softly singing worship songs. Sometimes she made pancakes, sometimes bread and eggs. Whenever Damian came out dressed for work, she always greeted him with a smile that somehow made his stress lighter. "Good morning, my hard-working husband," she would say warmly. Damian would smile and kiss her forehead. "Thank you for taking care of me." Back then, he truly appreciated her. Damian worked at a small electronics store in town. The salary was not much, but it helped them survive. Clara also supported the home by selling homemade snacks to neighbors and nearby shops. Life was difficult sometimes. Some months, bills piled up badly. Sometimes they had to choose between paying electricity bills or buying better food. But despite the struggle, they still laughed together. At night, they often sat on the small balcony outside their apartment sharing dreams about the future. "One day, we'll own a beautiful house," Clara said one evening while resting her head on his shoulder. Damian smiled. "And you'll finally get that big kitchen you always talk about." Clara laughed happily. "Yes, and I'll cook anything you want." Damian looked at her lovingly. "As long as you're beside me, I'm okay." And at that moment, he truly meant every word. But sadly, not all hearts remain the same forever. Everything started changing because of Damian's childhood friend, Marcus Hill. Marcus and Damian grew up together. They attended the same schools, struggled together, and even searched for jobs together after graduation. Both men came from middle-class families and understood what it meant to survive with little money. Sometimes they sat together complaining about life. "Man, I'm tired of being broke," Marcus would say. Damian usually laughed. One day things will change. But neither of them expected Marcus' life to change so suddenly. One afternoon, Marcus called Damian excitedly. "Brother, I'm getting married." Damian became happy immediately. "That's amazing. Who's the lucky woman?" Marcus lowered his voice proudly. "She's rich." At first Damian thought Marcus was joking, but he soon realized it was true. The woman Marcus was marrying was Vanessa Cole, the daughter of a wealthy businessman. The wedding was grand and luxurious. For the first time in his life, Damian attended a wedding where everything looked like a movie. The decorations were beautiful. The food looked expensive. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Damian looked around in shock while Clara held his hand happily. "Everything is so beautiful," Clara whispered. But Damian was no longer listening properly. His eyes stayed fixed on the wealthy guests laughing freely without any worries. Something quietly entered his heart that day. Jealousy. Months after the wedding, Marcus' life completely transformed. He moved into a massive mansion. He bought expensive suits and luxury watches. He started posting pictures from vacations in places Damian had only seen online. Whenever Marcus called, he spoke differently now. More confidently. More proudly. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus invited Damian to visit his new mansion. The moment Damian entered the compound, his mouth slowly opened. The house looked unbelievable. A fountain stood proudly in front of the building. Luxury cars were parked neatly outside. Servants moved around attending to guests. Inside the mansion, cold air from large air conditioners filled the rooms. The shining marble floor reflected light beautifully. Damian touched one of the soft leather chairs carefully, as if he was afraid to damage it. Marcus laughed loudly. "Relax, my brother. This is your second home now." Damian forced a smile. But deep inside, his heart burned painfully. Marcus handed him a drink proudly. "You see this life?" Marcus said while smiling. "Money changes everything." Those words remained inside Damian's head the entire day. When he returned home that evening, Clara happily opened the door for him. "You're back," she said excitedly. "I made your favorite soup." But Damian entered silently. For the first time, their small apartment suddenly looked irritating to him. The old curtains annoyed him. The cracked wall looked embarrassing. The weak fan sounded unbearable. Even the smell of food somehow frustrated him. Clara noticed his strange behavior immediately. "What happened?" she asked carefully. Damian dropped his bag roughly. "Nothing." Clara walked closer. "Did something go wrong at work?" Instead of answering calmly, Damian suddenly exploded. "I'm tired." Clara jumped slightly in shock. "Tired of what?" "Tired of this life," Damian shouted angrily. The room became silent. Clara stared at him in confusion. Damian looked around the apartment bitterly. "Look at this place," he said. "We work every day and still live like this." Clara spoke softly. "We're trying our best." But Damian was no longer thinking clearly. Marcus' luxurious life had poisoned his mind. "Trying," he scoffed. Marcus was smart enough to change his life. Clara frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Damian looked away. "Nothing." That night, Clara cried quietly after Damian slept. For the first time since their marriage, she felt something dangerous growing between them. And sadly, she was right. After that night, things between Damian Brooks and Clara Brooks were no longer the same. The warmth in their home slowly disappeared. Before, Damian used to hurry home after work because he missed Clara. Now he started staying out late for no good reason. Sometimes he sat alone outside after work staring at expensive cars driving past him. Other times, he followed Marcus around, admiring the luxurious lifestyle he now lived. Everywhere Damian looked, money seemed to control respect. People listened carefully whenever Marcus spoke. Workers rushed to open doors for him. Even old friends treated him differently now. The more Damian saw it, the more bitterness grew inside him. And sadly, Clara became the person he poured that bitterness on. One evening, Clara happily showed him a new curtain she bought cheaply from the market. "Look," she said with a smile. "I bargained very well for it." Damian barely looked at it. "It still looks cheap." The smile on Clara's face disappeared slowly. Another day, she prepared a special dinner after saving money little by little. When Damian tasted the food, he dropped the spoon carelessly. "Why do we always eat the same poor meals?" Clara looked hurt. "This is what we can afford for now." Damian shook his head with frustration. "You never understand anything." Little by little, the peaceful man Clara married started disappearing. He became impatient over small things. Sometimes he ignored Clara completely when she spoke to him. Other times he compared her to wealthy women online. "Look at how classy rich women dress," he once said while scrolling through his phone. Clara stayed silent, but those words pierced deeply into her heart. She started blaming herself for things she could not control. One night, while lying beside Damian in bed, Clara quietly asked, "Are you ashamed of me?" Damian turned and looked at her. For a moment, guilt touched his heart. But instead of comforting her, pride spoke first. "I'm ashamed of this life." Clara's eyes filled with tears immediately. "But we can build together," she whispered. Damian said nothing. He simply turned his back toward her and slept. Clara cried silently into her pillow that night. Weeks later, Marcus invited Damian to a luxury business party at one of the most expensive hotels in Chicago. At first, Damian almost refused because he had no expensive clothes to wear. But Marcus laughed. "Relax, brother. Once you enter there, you'll meet people that can change your life forever." Those words caught Damian's attention immediately. On the night of the party, Damian borrowed one of Marcus' expensive suits. The moment he entered the Grand Hotel, He felt completely out of place. The shining chandeliers, the smell of expensive perfume, the wealthy guests laughing confidently. Everything around him screamed money. Damian looked around with wide eyes while waiters carried trays of expensive drinks from table to table. This is the kind of life I deserve, he thought quietly. As the night continued, Marcus introduced Damian to different wealthy people. Some barely noticed him. Others simply shook his hand and moved on. Then suddenly, Damian saw her. Sophia Reed. She stood across the hall wearing a beautiful black dress that immediately drew attention. Her jewelry sparkled under the lights, and confidence followed every step she took. Several men surrounded her trying to gain her attention. But Sophia barely looked interested in any of them. Then her eyes landed on Damian. For a few seconds, she studied him quietly. Damian became nervous immediately. To his surprise, Sophia smiled slightly and walked toward him herself. Marcus quickly whispered, "Brother, that woman is extremely rich." Damian's heartbeat increased instantly. Sophia stopped in front of him gracefully. "You look uncomfortable here," she said softly. Damian forced a nervous smile. "Is it that obvious?" Sophia laughed lightly. "Yes." Her voice sounded smooth and confident. Unlike Clara, Sophia looked like a woman who had never suffered financially a single day in her life. "I'm Sophia," she said while extending her hand. "Damian." She shook his hand slowly. "Well, Damian, you're different from the other men here." Damian frowned slightly. "How?" "They're trying too hard to impress people." She looked directly into his eyes. "But you look real." Those simple words entered Damian's heart deeply. For the first time in a long while, he felt important. The rest of the night, Sophia spent more time talking to Damian than anyone else. She asked about his dreams, his work, his goals. Damian found himself opening up to her easily. Whenever she laughed at his jokes, he felt powerful inside. Before leaving the party, Sophia brought out her phone. "Give me your number," she said casually. Damian hesitated for only a second before giving it to her. As he watched Sophia walk away afterward, Marcus rushed toward him excitedly. "Brother," Marcus whispered loudly. "Do you know who that woman is?" Damian shook his head slowly. "She owns businesses in 3 states. Damian's eyes widened. Marcus grinned. "If Sophia likes you, your life can change forever." Those words echoed loudly inside Damian's mind all the way home. That night, Clara waited awake for him. The food she prepared had already gone cold on the table. The moment Damian entered, Clara smiled weakly. "You're finally back." But Damian barely noticed her. His mind was still filled with Sophia. Sophia's beauty. Sophia's confidence. Sophia's wealth. As Clara spoke about her day, Damian absent-mindedly pulled out his phone. Then suddenly, a message appeared. From Sophia. "I enjoyed tonight, smiley face." Damian stared at the message quietly. Then slowly, he smiled. From that night onward, Damian Brooks could no longer think clearly. Even while sitting beside Clara Brooks, his mind remained fixed on Sophia Reed. The next morning, Sophia sent him another message. "Good morning, Damian. Have a beautiful day." Damian stared at the text for several seconds before smiling to himself. No woman had made him feel that important in a long time. Very soon, their conversations became constant. Morning messages, afternoon calls, late-night chats. Sophia spoke to Damian in ways that fed his pride and dreams. "You're too smart to remain small. You deserve better. You should be living a bigger life." Every word pulled him deeper toward her. Meanwhile, Clara slowly watched her husband drift away from her. Whenever she tried talking to him, he looked distracted. Sometimes he smiled at his phone secretly. Other times he walked outside to answer calls privately. The loving husband she once knew was slowly disappearing before her eyes. One evening, Clara prepared a romantic dinner, hoping to reconnect with him. She lit small candles on the table and wore one of Damian's favorite dresses. When Damian entered the apartment, Clara smiled warmly. Surprise. But Damian only glanced around carelessly. "What is all this?" Clara forced a soft smile. I just thought we should spend time together like before. Damian removed his jacket with irritation. I'm tired, Clara. Her smile faded immediately. Can't we even talk anymore? Damian sighed heavily. You complain too much these days. Clara looked shocked. Complain? Damian, I'm trying to save our marriage. But Damian no longer wanted to hear anything that reminded him of responsibility and struggle. All he wanted was the rich and exciting world Sophia represented. That same night, while Clara washed dishes quietly in the kitchen, Damian sat in the sitting room texting Sophia. Then suddenly his phone rang. It was Sophia. Damian quickly stood up and stepped outside to answer. Sophia's smooth voice entered his ears immediately. I miss you. Damian smiled. I miss you too. Sophia became silent briefly before speaking again. Damian, can I ask you something honestly? Of course. Are you truly happy in your marriage? Damian leaned against the wall quietly. For the first time, he answered truthfully. No. Sophia spoke softly. I knew it. Damian closed his eyes slowly. Sometimes I feel trapped, he admitted. Sophia's voice lowered gently. A man like you deserves peace and happiness. Those words touched the exact weakness inside him. Then Sophia finally said the thing that changed everything. Damian, if we ever become serious, there's something you must understand. Damian frowned slightly. What is it? I don't share men. He remained silent. Sophia continued calmly. If another woman remains in your life, it will destroy whatever we could have together. Damian's heartbeat increased. Even though she did not mention Clara directly, the meaning was already clear. Sophia wanted him to choose. And sadly, Damian already knew what choice greed was pushing him toward. Over the following weeks, the emotional distance between Damian and Clara became worse. They hardly laughed anymore. Sometimes they ate in complete silence. Other nights Damian returned home very late without explanation. Clara's heart broke more each day. One rainy evening, she finally gathered courage to ask the question she had been fearing. Is there another woman? Damian looked up sharply from his phone. What? Clara swallowed painfully. Please just tell me the truth. Damian stood up angrily. You're becoming paranoid. Tears entered Clara's eyes immediately. Then why do you treat me like this? Damian looked away. Because deep down, he knew she was right. Clara walked closer slowly. I know you, Damian. Something has changed. For a brief moment, guilt touched him. But instead of admitting the truth, he became defensive. Maybe I changed because I'm tired of struggling every day. Clara stared at him in pain. We were struggling together before, and you still loved me. Those words hit Damian hard. But pride and greed had already hardened his heart. That night, Damian barely slept. Sophia's words kept replaying in his head. If another woman remains in your life, it will destroy whatever we could have together. By morning, he had made his decision. A terrible decision. A few days later, heavy rain poured across the city. The cold wind outside shook windows violently. Clara sat quietly in the sitting room folding clothes while waiting for Damian to return from work. When the door finally opened close to midnight, Clara stood up immediately. You're late again, she said softly. Damian entered slowly with a cold expression on his face. His silence immediately made Clara nervous. Damian, without answering, he walked toward the bedroom and pulled out a traveling bag. Clara frowned in confusion. What are you doing? Damian started throwing her clothes inside the bag roughly. Clara rushed toward him in shock. Damian! He finally looked at her, and the coldness in his eyes frightened her deeply. I want you to leave. For a moment, Clara thought she heard wrongly. What? I can't continue this marriage anymore. The room suddenly felt silent, except for the loud rain outside. Clara's lips trembled. Please tell me this is anger talking. But Damian's face remained hard. I've moved on with my life. Tears rolled down Clara's cheeks immediately. Moved on with who? Damian looked away. That doesn't matter. Clara cried openly now. After everything we built together? Damian's voice became louder. I'm tired of this poor life. Clara stepped backward, as if his words physically hit her. So that's it. she whispered painfully. Money changed you? Damian said nothing, because deep inside, he knew she was right. Clara grabbed his arm desperately. Please don't do this. We can still fix things. But Damian removed her hand coldly. Then he carried her bag to the front door and opened it. Leave. The thunder outside crashed loudly. Clara stared at him through tears, hoping he would change his mind. But he didn't. Slowly, she picked up her bag with shaking hands. The same man who once promised never to leave her was now throwing her away in the middle of the night. Barely able to breathe from the pain, Clara walked toward the door. Before stepping outside, she turned back one final time. I loved you with everything in me. Damian remained silent. Then Clara stepped into the rain, and the door closed behind her. The cold rain soaked Clara Brooks completely as she slowly walked through the empty streets that night. Her small bag felt heavy in her trembling hands. Cars passed occasionally, splashing water beside the road, but Clara barely noticed anything around her. Her heart was too broken. Tears mixed with the rain on her face as painful memories kept replaying inside her mind. The day Damian Brooks proposed to her. Their wedding day. The promises they made to each other. The nights they laughed together on their tiny balcony. Now everything was gone. And the worst part was not the poverty. It was the rejection. The man she loved with all her heart had thrown her away like she meant nothing. Clara stopped under a small bus stop and sat down slowly. Her body shook from cold and emotional pain. For a few seconds, she simply cried quietly into her hands. Then suddenly her phone rang. It was her older brother, Samuel Carter. The moment Clara answered, Samuel immediately sensed something was wrong. Clara, why are you crying? Clara tried speaking, but her voice broke completely. Damian sent me away. Silence followed immediately. What do you mean? He threw me out. Samuel became furious instantly. At this hour? Clara nodded weakly, even though he could not see her. Samuel's voice softened immediately. Listen to me carefully. Don't stay outside. I'm sending money for a hotel right now. That night, Clara barely slept. She cried until morning. The next day, Samuel traveled down immediately to bring his sister to Houston where he lived. The moment he saw Clara at the bus station, his heart broke badly. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her face looked weak and tired. Samuel hugged her tightly. You don't deserve this. Clara cried quietly against his chest. For weeks, Clara remained emotionally broken. Sometimes she stayed inside the room the entire day staring at nothing. Other times she cried silently at night when nobody was watching. Samuel tried comforting her many times. But heartbreak was not something that disappeared quickly. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, Damian quickly moved on with his new life. Only 2 months after sending Clara away, he officially started dating Sophia Reed publicly. Sophia spoiled him with expensive gifts and luxurious outings. She bought him designer clothes, luxury watches, expensive perfumes. Damian felt proud walking beside her. For the first time in his life, people treated him differently because of money. Friends suddenly respected him more. Even strangers looked at him with admiration. Marcus laughed proudly one evening while they drank expensive wine together. I told you your life would change forever. Damian smiled confidently. It already has. Very soon, Sophia introduced Damian to wealthy business owners and influential people. Damian started believing he had finally escaped the suffering of middle-class life forever. Then 1 year later, Sophia and Damian got married in a luxurious wedding ceremony. The wedding was everywhere online. People admired the decorations, the expensive cars, and Sophia's beautiful diamond jewelry. Damian felt like a king. As he stood beside Sophia during the wedding reception, he quietly told himself one thing. I finally made it. But fate was silently preparing another story for him. Months after the wedding, small changes started happening. Sophia suddenly became weak often. At first, they thought it was ordinary stress. But one morning, she collapsed inside the house. Damian panicked immediately and rushed her to the hospital. After several medical tests, the doctors finally delivered shocking news. Sophia had a serious illness. The treatment would be long, painful, and extremely expensive. For the first time in years, fear entered Damian's heart deeply. At first, he believed Sophia's wealth could easily handle everything. But as months passed, hospital bills increased heavily. Millions disappeared quickly. Sophia traveled from one specialist doctor to another. One expensive treatment after another drained her finances. Soon, one of her businesses was sold. Then another property. Then luxury cars. Damian watched helplessly as the glamorous life he once admired slowly collapsed before his eyes. The servants reduced. The expensive vacations stopped. Even the mansion felt quieter now. Most nights, Damian sat alone in silence thinking deeply. And slowly, regret began entering his heart. For the first time in years, he started remembering Clara properly. He remembered how peaceful life used to feel before greed destroyed him. He remembered her gentle smile, her patience, the way she believed in him even when life was hard. Meanwhile in Houston, Clara slowly began rebuilding herself. One afternoon, Samuel sat beside her seriously. "You cannot allow one man to destroy your entire future." Clara remained quiet. Samuel continued gently. "You're talented with hair. Why not learn professionally?" Clara looked uncertain. "With what money?" Samuel smiled slightly. "I'll borrow if I have to." Those words touched Clara deeply. For the first time in many months, a small light returned to her eyes. A few weeks later, Samuel borrowed money and enrolled Clara into a professional hairmaking and styling class. At first, Clara struggled emotionally. Some days she almost gave up. But slowly, she found peace while learning. Braiding hair distracted her from pain. Creating beautiful hairstyles made her feel useful again. Her instructors quickly noticed how hardworking she was. Soon, Clara became one of the best students in the training center. And without realizing it, the woman Damian threw away in the rain was slowly becoming stronger than ever before. As the months passed, Clara Brooks became completely focused on rebuilding her life in Houston. The pain Damian Brooks caused her did not disappear overnight. Some nights, she still remembered the cold rain, the traveling bag, the sound of the door shutting behind her. But instead of allowing those memories to destroy her, Clara used them as motivation. She practiced hairstyling tirelessly every single day. Sometimes she worked on customers from morning until night. Other times she practiced on mannequin heads alone inside her room while watching tutorials and learning new styles. Slowly, her confidence returned. After graduating from the training center, Clara started doing home services around the city. At first, things moved slowly. Some customers complained. Some delayed payment. Others doubted her because she was still new. But Clara remained humble and hardworking. And little by little, people started noticing her talent. Women loved how neat and beautiful her hairstyles looked. More customers began recommending her to others. Soon, Clara became busy almost every week. One afternoon, she received a booking that completely changed her life. An elderly wealthy woman named Margaret Wilson requested a home appointment. Margaret lived inside a massive mansion in one of the richest neighborhoods in Houston. The moment Clara entered the house, she became nervous. Everything looked expensive. The shining floors, the beautiful decorations, the luxury furniture. Still, Clara remained professional and respectful. During the appointment, Margaret carefully watched her work. Unlike many rich people, the old woman treated Clara kindly. "You have very gentle hands," Margaret said with a smile. "Thank you, ma'am," Clara replied politely. After finishing the hairstyle, Margaret looked into the mirror and smiled happily. "This is beautiful." Clara felt relieved immediately. But what surprised her most was what Margaret said next. "You remind me of my younger self." Clara smiled softly without understanding fully. Over the following months, Margaret became one of Clara's regular customers. Sometimes she called Clara just to keep her company while styling her hair. The old woman slowly grew very fond of her. One day, while Clara packed her equipment after an appointment, Margaret suddenly asked, Why are you still moving from house to house? Clara sighed lightly. I can't afford my own salon yet. Margaret remained thoughtful for a few seconds. Then she smiled. What if I help you? Clara froze completely. Ma'am, you are hardworking, respectful, and talented. Rare people like you deserve support. Clara almost cried from shock. A few months later, Margaret rented a large shop for Clara in a busy part of the city and fully sponsored the salon setup. The salon looked beautiful. Modern chairs, large mirrors, bright lights, professional equipment. Clara could hardly believe it was hers. The grand opening attracted many customers immediately because Margaret personally recommended her to wealthy women and influential people. Very soon, Clara's business exploded successfully. Women traveled from different cities just to style their hair at her salon. Money flowed steadily. Within 4 years, Clara became wealthy and highly respected. She bought her own beautiful house. She drove luxury cars. She employed workers. But despite her success, one thing remained different about her. She stayed humble, because she never forgot where she came from. Meanwhile, Damian's life had completely changed in the opposite direction. After years of expensive medical treatments, most of Sophia's wealth disappeared completely. Thankfully, Sophia Reed eventually recovered from the illness. But the luxurious life Damian once admired no longer existed. The mansion was gone. The expensive cars were sold. Businesses collapsed. Damian tried finding better jobs, but life became difficult. Eventually, he started working as an attendant at a grocery store in Chicago just to survive. Many nights, regret kept him awake. Sometimes he secretly searched for Clara online, but never found her. Deep down, he knew he had destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him. One afternoon, for years after Clara left Chicago, she received an invitation to an old friend's wedding taking place there. At first, she almost refused to go. Too many painful memories waited in that city. But Samuel Carter encouraged her gently. You're not the same broken woman anymore. Clara smiled softly. He was right. So she traveled to Chicago for the wedding. The city looked familiar, yet very different now. This time, she returned not as a rejected woman carrying tears, but as a successful woman carrying confidence. On the day before the wedding, Clara stopped at a grocery store to buy snacks and her favorite ice cream. Her luxury car parked outside immediately attracted attention. As Clara stepped out gracefully, several people glanced at her admiringly. She looked elegant and successful. Inside the grocery store, a tired-looking attendant arranged items quietly on a shelf. The man looked up casually, then suddenly froze. His eyes widened completely. It was Damian. For several seconds, he could not move. He stared at Clara in complete shock. She looked beautiful, confident, successful. Everything he once wanted stood directly before him, but no longer belonged to him. Damian's hands trembled slightly. Clara. Clara slowly turned after hearing her name. The moment their eyes met, painful memories rushed back instantly. For a second, neither of them spoke. Damian looked ashamed immediately. His face looked older now. Life had clearly humbled him. You, he whispered weakly. You look amazing. Clara remained calm. How are you, Damian? He forced a painful smile. I work here now. Clara nodded quietly. An uncomfortable silence followed. Then Damian lowered his head. I'm sorry. Clara said nothing. Tears slowly gathered in Damian's eyes. I ruined everything. Customers moved around them, but Damian barely noticed anybody. I thought money would fix my life, he continued painfully. I was foolish. Clara listened quietly. Damian swallowed hard. When I saw you step out of that car, he said softly, I realized what I truly lost. For a brief second, Clara saw genuine regret in his eyes. They later sat quietly outside near a small ice cream stand. Damian explained everything. Sophia's illness, the lost wealth, the suffering, the regrets that never left him. The day I sent you away was the biggest mistake of my life, he admitted with tears in his eyes. Clara looked at him calmly. You made your choice. Damian nodded slowly. I know. He looked at her desperately. But seeing you again, I realized I never stopped loving you. Clara remained silent for a few moments. Then she finally spoke. We can never be together again. Those words hit Damian deeply. He looked down painfully. Clara continued softly. You broke me in ways you'll never fully understand. Tears gathered in her own eyes now. But I survived. Damian nodded slowly with regret covering his face. Clara looked directly into his eyes. You chose money over love. You made your decision yourself. Damian could not argue because every word was true. Clara stood up slowly. I don't hate you anymore, she said calmly. But some wounds never fully heal. Damian's eyes filled completely with tears. I'm sorry, Clara. Clara gave a small, sad smile. I truly hope you find peace someday. Then she picked up her handbag and walked toward her car. Damian stood there frozen, watching the woman he once threw away in the rain drive out of his life forever. And as her car disappeared into the distance, Damian finally understood something painful. Money can buy comfort. Money can buy luxury. But real love, once destroyed, may never return again. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, comment, and share to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.